Okay, thank you all for coming. It's a busy time in New York. There's a lot of LP meetings, et cetera, so appreciate you taking the time. I'm Maria Gotch. I run the Partnership Fund for New York City, and we in Accenture set this program up now 16 years ago, coming out of the financial crisis of 2008. The goal was to make New York City a center for FinTech. Back, for those of you that can remember, most of the FinTech activity was happening on the West Coast. And as a private fund backed by major corporations, focused on trying to build the economy of New York City, we put our foot down and said, we need to do something to make New York City a center for FinTech, and that the future of FinTech was not all B2C, that there was going to be a big B2B component to it. So 16 years later, I think we were right in our assumption. New York is now really the leader for B2B FinTech, and that really is what the program is about. So the program is about connecting emerging technology companies, where a lot of the innovation comes from, with our financial services sector. And as you know, this is the largest concentration of financial services firms, banks, money management firms, insurance companies in the United States. And it's really about trying to make it a more seamless set of conversations between those of you that have innovation and the large institutions that really are interested in innovation and want to incorporate sort of the newest and best things. So the program runs once a year, as you know. The selection is done by the financial institutions, and so putting an application in will give you a reasonable read as to what the interest level is from that group of 38 to 40 organizations in terms of what you're doing. And then the program runs from March until June. There's a terrific panel, and you're going to hear from a couple alums as well as some of the people that are on the front line from our financial institution partners that are actually doing the mentoring and giving you really this extraordinary access to understanding what their needs are, where you might fit in, feedback on your product. That I think what you'll hear from the alums is it's really, there's nothing else really like it out there in terms of what you can get in a very concentrated amount of time. So we look forward to getting your applications, and hopefully you'll learn a lot from the panel this evening. So let me turn it over to Luke Giancarlo from Accenture, who will then take us through the panel. Thanks, Luke.
Maria, thank you so much. Fantastic. This is going to be fun. And this is actually one of my favorite nights of the whole program, because I think it's like a unique opportunity where you're all kind of trying to understand what the hell the FinTech Lab is. And I may be excited. You heard a lot about incubators in general. And I think, like Maria said, we've got something really special here. And so tonight's going to be a fun panel. We've got two financial institution partner, what we call chaperones, that really take on those startup companies. And we've got two really successful alumni that just came out of last year's program. But before I hand it off, I do want to echo some of Maria's PSAs about the program itself. So just some brass tacks items. So right now our applications are open and they close on November 21st. So you have about another 2 weeks to go on those. We also have a virtual event like this on the 14th, where you're able to join and ask any last questions before applications close. Also, I should add, so for tonight, we're going to do a bit of a 40-minute panel. Just you'll hear from their impressions and their stories about their experience. And then we actually want to open up to you all for about 20 minutes of questions. So start getting them ready. You'll have an opportunity tonight to really have an intimate discussion with some people who have gone through this program before about what they're looking for, their experiences, et cetera. So with that, I'm going to ask us all to maybe kick off with some introductions, and we'll go right down the list, and then we'll dive in. So Siva, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Hey, good evening, everyone. Siva here. I'm the founder of Lizer. We are an agent infrastructure platform company for enterprises, and happy to share more about the program and what we learned and where we are today as a startup.
And hi, everyone. Farha, CEO and founder here at Wealthy. Can you hear me okay? And so at Wealthy, we offer an AI white label wealth companion that layers on top of mobile banking apps. It's designed to help them with customer acquisition, retention, and even capturing revenue generating opportunities. Had a great experience, and I'm excited to talk with you about some of the impact that came out of it.
I think I'll go next, but first I need to say thank you to Luke and Maria for inviting me here. My name is Anindya Sengupta. I'm part of Prudential's Innovation Group. I have been here in this program for almost like 6 years, the 6th year running. We had very successful startup interactions in the last few years. I'm more happy to talk about that. And I also call myself a reform banker and consultant who is trying my hands dirty in technology now.
Hi, so I'm the last one. So Sharon Singer, I work at TIA. So you may not know TIA, you may know TIA. TIA is a not-for-profit. It's over 100 years old. It's a Fortune 100. And we provide pension fund services, particularly for people in non-profits, education, and so on. I work for a team that supports one of the CIOs in that organization. Luke's laughing because it's got a very, very long name. So basically what we do is we build out the technology for most of our business lines. That's retirement, that's wealth, that's sales and marketing technology, and it's also all the digital client channels and advice channels that we offer. So, and I think we've been with my CIO has been an executive sponsor, I think for 7 years. I'm 2 years in. This is my second time round.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And again, I love this. I love this program. We have a great time with this program, and thank you very much for inviting us.
Oh, of course. And we're going to hear more about your great time with the program.
Absolutely.
And maybe honestly to start, so Nindya, I was thinking about it, I think besides Maria in the room, you are our most tenured person at the FinTech lab that's here tonight. So maybe I'm actually going to start with you in terms of like, why do you keep coming back to the FinTech lab? What makes it special? You obviously are really involved with startups and incubators in general. So what about the FinTech lab, maybe to kick us off, makes this really unique?
Sure. I think Neil is not here. He'll be the most tenured one.
He is.
So
yeah,
he'll be
yeah,
a 16th year in the program, right? What makes this accelerator the most unique one is, I love the aspect of the civic framework where you bring in 40 plus institutions, the biggest names you can find in the financial services across asset management, banking, payments, and insurtech on the insurance side of it, where we call them chaperones, right? So we have these interactions with those chaperones, which makes it very unique. And then I come back to this every year because this is one of the best part of my day job, right? Because I get to meet with the startups like here with Siva and others, right? In our corporate job, we are always looking for bright and innovation ideas, how we can make changes on our business model and our operational efficiency. And this is the place we find those companies. We have had very successful introductions with some of the companies, and then, I think this is the biggest one, right? This is the biggest FinTech accelerator in US. So you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. 15 years is quite the pedigree, and really, I think, a testament to the type of program that it is, that the organizations keep coming back, and we've had such successful alumni as well. And so, Sharon, maybe a similar question. You're obviously a little newer to the program, and maybe just reflect for us on your experience so far with the program and what you've really enjoyed about it in the past 2 years.
Yeah, I want to kind of make a point prior to answering that. So prior to TIA, I was 4 years running a team at Goldman Sachs called Technology Business Development. What we did was we made intros for tech companies into Goldman. That was one of the things we did. But those companies tended to be portfolio companies of Goldman Sachs. And we had several hundred tech companies that we were invested in at that point. After that, I did 2 years at City Ventures where I was platform lead. And I did the same thing. I was involved in liaising and making intros of companies that were City Ventures portfolio companies. I think we had like 230 fintechs and enterprise tech companies in our portfolio. I think the reason I love this is partly, I think you get a kick, right, from working with really bright people, and you always want them to succeed in as much as you possibly can. What I learned from the 2 prior sort of gigs I did was there is nothing, if you are in fintech or if you're in a certain kind of enterprise tech, there's nothing like having engineers at these kind of firms, financial services firms, giving you inputs and having a relationship with you and being candid about what it takes for you to move your technology to a point where you can deploy at scale. I can't give specific instances of people that I work with because I'm probably still under NDA and it wouldn't be correct. But when I was at Citi, we made a series of videos with our portfolio companies, and Transmit Security is one of those. They talked about the fact that they had worked with Citi engineers for 6 years before being deployed by Citi, and also before becoming an investment accepting an investment from Citi in their Series A. So they had the most extraordinary access to people who are, doing sort of something like millions and millions of transactions, card transactions a day, and so on. Those people are giving them very candid feedback to help them develop their product. I can't tell you, you can probably back me up, how hard it is as somebody who's a chaperone or who's making intros to get people that kind of access. And the earlier stage you are, the harder it is for someone to make an introduction. And this is a quite exceptional opportunity to access that kind of knowledge and candidly build those kinds of connections for the future.
And if I could jump in quickly on that one, and kudos to Luke and others. This is a very, very well-structured program. Maria and team runs it at a very tight shop. It helps us to get you to the right stakeholders within the company, and it has the right structure and timelines. So I think that kind of makes us very unique, because you come into the program, if you apply to this, you'll see there's a set deadlines when you have to meet with the mentors, and there's a 12-week mentorship program. So the structure of the program makes it very, very unique. You won't find it anywhere else.
To get like that engagement in 3 months and to really get kind of shot out of a cannon with your financial institutions, there is like a lot of structure around that. We put on the guardrails to make sure that you have a successful engagement with the financial institution that's really mentoring you throughout the engagement. But with that said, I might call you the star of the show tonight, Siva, I think. And it's amazing. 48 hours ago, you just made a big announcement, which was about both the Partnership Fund for New York and Accenture being involved in a funding race. So you're one of our proud alumni right now.
Yes.
And maybe if I could turn to you, maybe if you could share, what was it like coming into the program? What did you get out of it? How does that led to you to where you are now and like the massive success that you've had in such a short period of time?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Luke. I was there in the seat last year, figuring out what this program is all about. I'd read about it on their website, but I think after listening to the previous year's alumni, so Reality Defender and I think Addison Wealth, I think so, a couple of them, I realized that this could be a game changer if we get in. It's not like the other Y Combinator and other accelerator programs, because here you have an opportunity to get into all these banks and insurance firms. Like imagine we were in the same room with David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, last year for 1 hour, asking him all kind of questions to figure out how these large enterprises decide. And I think we took a call internally as a startup that we'll try and make this happen. We'll drop everything else and figure out how do we get into the program. And getting into this program is not easy, and we'll speak about it a bit more. But you should. We took a call that we will give our best attempt, and we got in, and then followed by the 3 months of. It sounds like 3 years, actually. Yeah, it felt like 3 years. Yeah, we had so many
gray in your beard after
Yeah,
that,
exactly. Yeah, we had so many meetings set up. Chaperones and India and Sharon were fantastic because they were acting like our team members, extension of our team. They were setting up meetings with. So imagine the head of model risk management, the head of enterprise applications internally, to understand how would they decide, what are the features that they're looking for startups like us to build. And that actually helped us get our product features in shape. So in short, if I have to say, we entered the program as an enterprise agent infrastructure platform, and we ended up leaving the program as an enterprise agent infrastructure platform with a financial services specialty or specialization. So that kind of changed the way enterprises started looking at us. Today, post the program, we are able to walk in with all the names that we had as chaperones. We are able to say that, hey, look, we know how Prudential works, we know how TAA works, and we understand. We spoke to these experts, and we built our product accordingly. So in a lot of ways, this was definitely a turning point for Lizer.
Great, yeah. And Font, I'm going to turn to you. I mean, what Siva talked about his experience with other incubators, and you came right out of the MasterCard program and into the FinTech Lab program. So maybe for the audience here, could you touch on like what the program was like for you, your experience as you compare to some of the other incubators out there?
No, totally happy to. So you're right. We came out of the MasterCard program, was really focused on our technology, right? Making sure it was bank grade and bank ready. But coming into this program, what I really loved, what made it unique, was the focus on business development and actually how to make sure you're positioning yourself and your value proposition in a way that you can actually learn how to cultivate business with some of these bigger mega banks. We were paired with JP Morgan Chase, TD, and Fulton Bank, for example. And so getting access to their CMOs and data folks, chief innovation, procurement, people that actually make the to buy decisions, right? And the business lines that could procure us was invaluable. Most accelerators will just give you kind of like a one size fits all curriculum. You go in, everybody gets taught the same thing, you go to courses, and then good luck afterwards, right? But coming into this program, you're actually paired with financial institutions that kind of handpicked you and said, hey, we're interested in what you're doing. This is something that we're looking at and we're open to partnership. So that was invaluable, right? So getting in front of people that not only like what you're doing, but have raised their hand to work with you, and they're dedicating 3 months to introducing you to everyone in their institution. I mean, we're talking like 10, 20 meetings per institution or more. And we came out of it with pilot opportunities. We're co-creating pilots with 2 out of those 3 institutions. And we also were able, the feedback we got in those meetings helped me to recraft our value proposition and how I talk about it, to the point where I was able to negotiate a 7-figure reseller agreement with MasterCard after the program, which was pretty amazing, who's also one of the corporate sponsors. So this was great. Invaluable and very different. If you want to get BD sales in front of your actual client to get honest feedback, that's what this program does.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we talked about both of you guys had such successful, phenomenal experiences out of the program. So if I can go maybe back to the chaperones, what really makes a great engagement? When you're working with a young startup, like what are you looking for? What really makes it click? That is the difference maker between like what really can scale long term and what is more of a flash in the pan learning experience.
I can jump in. I talk a lot, but what makes this unique? When we are looking for startups, as Luke mentioned, there'll be a selection process. Then you get paired up with maybe 4 or 5 institutions to mentor you for like 12-week period. Those institutions picked you up, right? Because they want to work with you. But what we look for in the startup is they have to be honest, because we know like you're a scrappy startup, you're coming up, we are building a product, you may not have the full solution yet, but what do you want in those discussions? Because we're kind of I call that your friends within the large institution. We're trying to understand what you're looking to achieve, but you have to be very transparent of what you have, what you don't have. It's when you walk into the meetings, we'll be setting up meetings with our chief data office, chief technology office, you're the head of the products, right? We want to know from you before that engagement, what you have, is it something that it's still in the roadmap? So being very transparent is a key part of making any relationship work. And key thing to know, this 12 weeks will go fast. You may not have a POC, but the relationship that you build during that period will land you a POC, like addition. Well, 2 years back, we're having in discussion now. So it takes time when the right time is right. So you have to be transparent with the champions, with the chaperones, because they are your champion within the company. We're trying to get you into the door, but we need to know what's real, what's not real.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think just finally sort of tying a bow on what makes it special, I think is actually the quality of the chaperones and the commitment of the chaperones. It's a small community of people who do this kind of thing. We don't even really have a specific single job title, right, for people who make intros to financial services. But I think the quality and the dedication of the chaperones is extraordinary. I think for me, I totally agree. I also wanted people who trusted us, who I felt would trust us and would go on a journey with us. I'm looking at Siva. I don't know if he really felt he could. But you have to be sometimes really candid with people. You want to work with an entrepreneur who's got a brilliant idea and who passionately believes in it, right? And so I didn't get the opportunity to work with you, but working with Siva and there is still time. Exactly. Actually, that's another point. That's another point. We wish we could work with more people, but afterwards we talk an awful lot amongst chaperones. And so we kind of feel collectively that, this is a collective a collective experience. But we spend a lot of time trying to make this work for both sides, right? To expose our engineers and our leadership and our product people to new ideas. But sort of like vice versa, there's a real art, which I didn't learn until, at TIA, I learned at the other places, about finding the person who's going to be an influencer with you in your organization, finding the person who will ultimately make that recommendation and get that company on the leaderboard. And it's not usually the CIO, because those people spend their entire lives in meetings arguing about budget or talking about, many other things that we probably shouldn't go into in public, right? Getting people in front of there, I think you were wonderful. Your team was absolutely wonderful, because we would explain to you who you were going to meet and why you had to speak to this person and what kind of person that person was and how to speak to that person, that this person was somebody who had very little time. We'd spent months, getting hold of them to get a meeting, but that what floated this person's boat was, innovation, and that this person had multiple awards and patents and so on. But this person was the person who could move everything forward. And so doing that and having somebody who's got the emotional intelligence and the belief in the process on the other side is very special. It doesn't actually always work. But I feel like with this program, because we are able to select those companies, it's more possible. I think also people who are able to roll with punches, because sometimes not all of the interactions are what I would want as a chaperone. That's life in financial services, right? And then taking the knocks and also learning. If somebody doesn't feel like they're coachable, if they feel that everything is perfect and they've got nothing else to do but sell this product to your company, I wouldn't have picked that person, frankly.
And one other thing, if I could just add to that one, thanks, Sharon. Technology is fine. It's a shiny object, right? At the end of the day, it has to solve a business problem. So if a startup can articulate what they're doing and how they're going to make that change in our business model, that's what resonates with the stakeholders, right? So you can talk about the technology, that's fine, but make sure you're focusing on the problem you're trying to solve for the client, right? And that makes it or break it. Because sometimes you find companies and startups that say, we're making a huge shiny object, but what it does, I don't know. You have to relate that one back to solving a business problem. That's where, it makes it more tangible.
But I must say this one thing. I continue to feel that an India and Sharon are like our extended sales team sitting inside Prudential and TIAA. But what it took for us to establish this trust was our commitment as well as startups as part of the program. We were completely committed. We are showing up to every meeting every day. And I think over a period of time, we were able to develop the trust. And now I think I need to allocate some commission if they close the deal, because they are actually batting for it. We've done our job, and they are so keen on getting us into the organization. And that is number one. Number two, your chaperones are not only limited to the organization that they represent. They are from this industry. They have fantastic network. So you can ask for intros, and they're going to get you intros to other firms that you want to work with as well. So just put in your effort, and you will see the whole program give back the benefits like what we are seeing, actually.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was going to ask you what your tips and tricks were, because you seem to be everywhere throughout the whole engagement and we're so responsive the whole time. So, and Fanta, I want to come to you next, but Siva, I'm curious, like any advice that you would have from the mentee perspective in terms of how you fostered that relationship, how you kept up with that communication, how you really were able to build that relationship?
Yeah, just make time for the next 3 months if you get selected. Getting selected is not easy. There is a Shark Tank kind of a setup, but if you get in, and if you're a founder and if you have time, put your time in. I was already running few deals, so I had like 50% of my time allocated. So I ended up hiring an enterprise program manager just to be to run the whole program. So we were able to run together. So if you have bandwidth, do hire someone. It is that important. It's not a Y Combinator thing. And but otherwise, just put in. That's the only advice I would give, because then you will see that you'll be able to extract the value out of the program from these meetings and from these introductions.
Yeah. And you talked about the selection process, and it is competitive, but the one like criteria or the binary decision during each round of the applications, from the paper-based application to the Shark Tank Day to the demo fair and then the final selection, which is about top 10 companies. The one question is, as a financial institution, do you want to spend 3 months with this team, right? Do you want to be a mentor and have your team spend the time with them? And so by the time you get selected, you already know that there's that mutual agreement, right? That they want to spend time with you and you obviously want to spend time with them. And so I think you're set off on the right foot and you already know that there's a match before you get in. And Fat, I want to go to you because you actually, I remember on the first day you pulled me aside and you said, I only got so-and-so many partners. Can I get more? And I was like, can you handle more? And I think like you had an amazing ability where like you really worked those 3 that you had, but you also were able to really like meet a lot of others and get more plugged into the network. And like you said, it actually helped you, leverage more with MasterCard that wasn't your mentor. So I'm curious, could you talk about your experience with maybe the more broader set and how are you able to build really strong relationships while still getting that exposure?
Totally. So in addition to hiring or finding someone on your team that can be dedicated to the program, that's really smart. One of the things that we did was we put together a system for how we were going to prep for meetings, attend meetings, who was going to come to the meeting, make sure we had the right people there, what we were going to, our goals for the meetings, the follow-up for the meetings. It was literally a system, and we did that for every interaction. So they would always get a follow-up and then multiple touch points and things like that. We were very systematic about how we did that with everyone we talked to. Also, we leveraged the advisors quite a bit, right? Because a lot of them had kind of inside scoop on the people we were talking to, or before a meeting, we would go to them and get their advice, so we showed up well. So that's something that we did. And I also, I live in DC, but I slog to New York to meet as many people as possible in person. Maria told me that early on, if you can get them to meet you in person instead of virtual, that's better. And so I did that as much as I could also to kind of build rapport.
Yeah. Maybe coming back to India and Sharon, I'm curious, like we talked a lot about what makes a good match, but part of that down selection process, what are you looking for when you're meeting companies here that makes you think, okay, I think this would be a really good fit in my organization? Like, what are like those first matchmaking, first dating things that you're looking for before you actually vote on them?
Okay, I'll go first. It's really, really hard, actually.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard because this is only the second time I've done this. The first time we did it, we went with one company, which I think TIA always did. They just mentored one company. This time we did 2, and so we can handle 2 as well. We've got a playbook for this. But I think you always want to mentor more, and it's so hard. I would say that if you get to, I don't know what you call it. Is it the demo fair where we all come and we meet everybody? Take that super seriously if you get to that point, because even if you're not in the final 10 or whatever it is, the final cut, I still have cards and I still are in contact with people from that first selection. Some people who are actually based in the UK. I couldn't get my head around that, but it's so on. And I still am in contact with them and do what I can and make intros or if I know people who are looking to join that kind of company, I will do. I think what we looked for, candidly, it was a sort of trade-off. So first of all, we looked at the kind of people that we would be dealing with. We did have a sort of criteria for it. We wanted to hang out with people like Sivo. We wanted to hang out with the other guys that we were mentoring. We also candidly looked at, is this in an area where we know we have appetite over the next year or 2? So, obviously AI screamed. There were many offerings in AI. So it wasn't just that, that's why we picked Sivo. We thought he was the very best, of course. But we also worked with a company, a security company, because again, that was something that we were investing very heavily in and looking for. I think candidly, we also wanted to work with companies where we felt we could bring something to the table. That had been the case the year prior. Also Edition Wealth. This fantastic platform for financial advice and wellness, because we want it to be a long-term relationship. We want to feel that we can put people forward. I made intros there to people who I think could be great advisors in many different fields. We did the same for the security company. I said, if I were you, I would cozy up to this person because in a few years' time, it's probably not going to be working anymore. I'd grab him. He gave you the best advice I've heard throughout the whole program on our side. Keep in touch with him because I think you should grab him as an advisor. I know that people are looking to other people in our organization that they met in that way. And people in our organization, for some reason, I'd never met the people who run our national call centers. We have something like 6 million calls a year from our clients. It's a big part of our business. So I got the head of the call centers to talk to the security company. And he said afterwards to me, I just did a JD because, whenever it is that I retire, I'd love to work and help and advise startups, which came as a huge surprise to me. I'd never met him before, and we kind of bonded over this. So I think can we bring value? Have we got something to bring to the table is also a big consideration for us because we expect it to be a long-term.
Yeah. And Aninda, you had 3 companies last year. So
yeah,
he's
Superman.
Superman.
I bring in my friends and family to help, right? There's always a motto, you can't really help it by yourself. So in terms of selection, there are 2 steps actually. So, if you're thinking of applying, make sure you put in the right materials for the initial, because we do the first selection based on what you submit on the application. So we don't get to meet you at that point. So, from where we sit within Prudential, we look at the innovations across all of our globally, right? Across all the lines of businesses. And we have certain capability gaps they're trying to address through Build by Partner. And then we're trying to match what is the gap that we have right now versus what was submitted in your application process to see where the match is, right? And we also bring in, bless you, and we also bring in our stakeholders from businesses to have us opine on those selection process. So that's solely based on what we have submitted. That's the first step. Second is I'm not sure what you call that one in February. It's a demo day or selection day.
Shark Tank, then demo.
Shark Tank day. We bring in our friends because I can't be in 3 rooms at the same time. So I bring in my friends from my innovation group or business groups. And that time we judge based on how the company is pitching. Do they have a very clarity on what the roadmap looks like? Are they coachable? Because that's a big part of the equation. Can they change their business model? Can they take the advice that you're going to give them for next 3 months, right? And be how their technology fits in or how the solution fits into the broader landscape of what Prudential is looking at. So those 3 angles we'll be looking at in the next stage. But the first step is make sure you have the right materials in the application because that's going to make the first cut, right, from corporate perspective.
Yeah, that's great. And you talked a lot about the events from the chaperone perspective. The application, the Shark Tank Day, the demo fair, then the actual engagement itself. But there's also a lot of events that we do for the startups. And before I kick this one off, I'll admit you guys won't see much of me once you get into the program. Really, my role in the team here at Accenture is really to do that matchmaking and the brokering to set you up with those financial institution partners. And then from there, it's really bespoke. And your engagement is really with those financial institutions, and each one have their own dynamic, their own curriculum, their own way for how they run that program. But we do host some really fun events as well. We take the cohort down to Washington, D.C. for a day to meet with regulators. We have a CEO meeting, which you touched on with David Solomon, and a couple other panels that we do throughout the program. But we try to keep it pretty light touch. If I could turn to both of you, I'd love to hear from you on what were maybe your favorite events that we did, or how did some of those kind of shape your thinking or some insights that you heard?
Favorite events. I really enjoyed I have to be honest. I enjoyed meeting with my champions at the banks.
Oh, you brown nose.
So I'll have to pick something else. And I think in addition to that, the compliance meeting in DC was really good. I think as FinTechs, we get a little nervous about talking to the regulators, but they created a safe space where we could ask kind of very candid questions and get feedback and even know who your interlocutor would be. And we even had folks from the FCC follow up with us to ask for a deeper dive on a growing trend that we follow, that they're following around millennial and Gen Z investing and social finance and things like that. So that was really powerful. I made some long-term relationships there. So yeah, the governance piece was really good and rare.
I love that one.
It's the same, yeah. I think the DC trip is something that you shouldn't miss if you get in to the program. We got to speak to FINRA, a couple of other regulators as well. But FINRA is someone I remember because we had 2 follow-up meetings. We ended up building a knowledge graph of all FINRA's handbooks, which we were able to take to banks and sell actually. So we got an idea when we met these folks, and we realized, in my meeting with FINRA, I asked them, what is your objective? How do you guys want to help your banks? They said, we want to provide a lot more value to our member organizations, but we are not able to. And in fact, it was the chief architect there who gave us the idea. What if you guys are able to build a knowledge graph and have agents that these banks could use? So you would get new product ideas and revenue streams, ideas for new revenue streams when you meet them, but it's important. You cannot miss. And I had several pictures that I took. I was using that to get more meetings landing and to land with these financial services firms. But yes, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, the DC trip is awesome, and it's the whole alphabet soup. We meet with the OCC, the FRB, FINRA, so it's really a great program. Just reflecting on that, it was actually amazing. I'm a big digital currency nut. It's my main focus area. And we were there the same day that they were passing the Genius Act. And so we were in the room with the OCC, who was intended to be the next big regulator at federal level for stablecoins. And I was like drooling, like, what are you going to do about regulation in the space? But it was so amazing to have these like intimate conversations with regulators in like really topical areas. And they're very open about, how they're thinking about this and the concerns that they have. And they actually want to learn from the startups as well around what you're seeing, how you're approaching these issues so they can learn as well. So really great program. Awesome. Maybe to close this out, so before we go to some questions, if we can maybe just go down the line and any advice that you would have, and I'll go maybe coming back this way. So starting with Sharon this time, like for you as a chaperone, what's one piece that you would give for someone that's a year out from the program that's hoping to get in?
Firstly, I'd say apply. Definitely apply. It's a unique opportunity. And like I said, even if you don't get to the final cut, then you're going to make an awful lot of really, really useful connections on the way. I think that you started with me because I'm always very outspoken in the chaperone debriefs, because I think the thing to do is to go in with the right mindset and to play a slightly longer game than the 3 months, right? It is very, very difficult to sell into financial institutions. It just is. Even if you're you're a Datadog or one of these large established firms, it's a very long sales cycle, and it's harder and harder the earlier the stage that you are. I would say when you come into it, be determined to learn as much as you possibly can, and to make the most of the relationships that you build and you create there, right? Make sure that the chaperones are working on your side. I'm sure they will be. But there is a tipping point. We're not going to be coy about this. There is a tipping point at the end as we're kind of offboarding I would say the program per se, where you turn into a sales mode, right? If that happens to be appropriate. But I would suggest you don't go in thinking that you're going to sell this product to everybody in the room at every opportunity that you get when you cross the threshold into the firm that you're in, right? This is just not going to happen, and it's going to upset people. I think people who are engineers or people who are product SMEs feel very, very nervous if you suddenly come on very heavy on the sales side, right? They want to talk to you because you're bright, because you're innovating, because you've got something to contribute. They want to know more about you. You should leave them wanting to leave more, and you shouldn't, expect to switch too early into a sales mode. I would say that, at least on our side, I think on your side, it's a longer term relationship. The thing that I would do, which Addition Wealth, who we both mentored, did incredibly well. Everybody they need to know at our organization knows them and loves them. And they can pick up the phone if and whenever they want to. And they do, right? We have a great relationship at many levels. Every time they had a meeting with somebody, they immediately wrote and said thank you. They didn't ask for anything because it wasn't always appropriate, but they said it was fantastic to meet you. Thank you for the hour you gave. Thank you for the workshop we did. It's a pleasure. We hope we could be in touch. And they just kept it at that. Everybody in our organization loves those two women. Your team were fantastic, Shiva, because you would write and you would actually write and say thank you without being told to. And you'd also put in like little minutes of the meeting, but they weren't pushy. But it saved us having to write the minutes of the meeting or the follow-ups. But I think that's the main thing, right? I mean, invest in these relationships. These are very important, very senior, very busy people. They're not going to sign a check straight for you anyway. They're not going to necessarily move it forward. A good chaperone will do that for you. And they'll find the right time. But create those relationships because those people can really open doors longer term.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to take that opportunity to really just double down on that one because you'll get sick of hearing us say this is a mentorship program. You really will, and it's by design. I mean, we've been running this for 15 years, and you heard from Maria Gotch, the CEO of the Partnership Fund, and the fund is a civic fund that represents the 300 largest employers in New York, and so we really try to anchor this about building those relationships, building your brand, really that learning aspect around refining your product with these organizations and giving you that access that is unprecedented from other incubators, and all the sales efforts that you do won't get you into the doors that some of these chaperones will. And so we really try to keep it as a civic mission and with that mentorship. And we celebrate the wins, the revenue, the agreements and everything, but really it's those relationships will take you a lot farther. And some of the best stories are actually the companies that graduated the program and 3, 4, 5 years later, they're then scoring these huge deals and they're kind of anchoring back on those relationships that they built. Like Digital Asset just announced 135 million in their round. They came out of our program about 5 years ago and they're phenomenal and killing it. And a lot of those same partners they have were ones that they met in the program. So like that long-term strategy completely outweighs the one deal that you might have gotten by being pushy throughout the program. So
I'll probably jump in next and after Sharon is like, make sure you clear up your calendar for those 12 weeks because you'll hear, Tony, like you were here, Siva, you were here, right? You're going to be meeting like, probably seeing me or other chaperones multiple times during a week, and you'll be meeting the heads of the businesses and technology organizations. So make the time to connect with them. Don't try to sell. We will reinforce you, but this is the time for you to make connections because the moment you can make those connections, those will fruit, maybe 6 months down the line, maybe 1 year down the line, but you won't have that opportunity to talk to the head of the technology, head of the businesses in any other setting. And then having those touch points, having, maybe once in 6 months or 3 months, if you have a product update, if you have done some significant, send a quick note saying, by the way, we met you like 3 months back through the program. Can you have a quick conversation? You'll be surprised how many of those guys will say yes. It has happened with the mentorship we have done for the last 6+ years, but that's the key thing. Like you're clear. I mean, the more time you put onto it, the more value you get out of it.
I would agree too. And I would say the one hint I would give is listen more, like 90% of the meetings. I thought I was listening enough, and I still don't think I was listening enough and asking enough questions. Like you should come prepared, not to go in, pitch, demo, get a follow-up with a pilot. Like they're right. It should be like, what do you think about this? Why did you pick us? Tell me what interests you in this field. What would you like to see that you don't see? Who are you working with already that does something similar that we may or may consider? Like honestly, like ask questions and listen like the whole time. I really was on myself and my team to do that. And I feel like I could have even done that more, but that's when the nuggets come out. And that's how we slowly started to see who the business line was that might actually approve a pilot with us because we were listening, hearing their pain points, understanding, and it even helped with the demo. And I would say the demo for like the last 5 minutes, if that. So that's my tip.
And that actually might be the best tip that I've heard in a while. It really is, because if you're talking, then you're not learning, right? And so, like, spend the time in those meetings to really hear from those financial institutions, understand the problems, who the buyers are, how they think about this, and that's going to go way farther than you just showing a pretty slide of your demo. So, Siva.
Yeah. So you heard from all of us how important it could be for your startup. So go back home, open up ChatGPT, block an hour, start brainstorming, figure out who are the mentor companies and the partners actually. Figure out what would they want, why would they want your startup. Start thinking about your pitch starting from day one so that you are able to figure out who your customer is and how you're going to pitch to them. If you do that effort and get in, I think the same effort will help you glide to the whole 3-month program. So yeah, we have. I mean, ChatGPT wasn't this good last year when I got in, so it's better now. So you guys can get started with that. Yes, exactly.
I don't know about that one, Siva. You just said your advice, use ChatGPT. That's
It works. It works. I mean, yeah, open up.
Works.
I mean, actually, sorry. Actually, I like Gemini 2.5 Pro a lot more now. So yeah. So use Gemini. Sorry.
I'll give you a bonus tip as well. I think there's a lot of great technology out there, but what people are looking for is good problem solving, right? Like good solutions. They're looking for business solutions, not just savvy technology. And so I think, like, when you're having these conversations, think about how you're solving a problem as opposed to just how great your technology is. And I think if you are more solution oriented and start with that, then the technology just backs it up and proves your point. So awesome. Well, thank you so much to the panel. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. We're going to go to some questions, and we're going to do this just family style free form. So maybe if you just have a question, want to raise your hand, and we'll kind of call on you and let you stand up and introduce yourself and ask your question. I saw you go up first.
Thank you for the very, very engaging session. What if you already have relationships with these financial institutions? How does this program augment it, or how does that work?
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from you, Fanta, because I think you had a lot of relationships. But I'll add for a quick second. I think off the bat, and similar to put in ChatGPT how they would think about it, also use your relationships. This whole ecosystem and very much the lab is very relationship driven. And so if you're looking to apply the program and you see that Prudential's involved, call up your contact at Prudential and be like, hey, do you know who's involved there? And try to get to an India, have a conversation with him and get his feedback as well. It's like a really natural way to have a conversation, engage with your existing client base or relationships before we even get in.
That's what we did for MasterCard. Hey, have you heard about this program? And see your logo on here, and getting them to recommend you or give you insight on who to talk to, 100%. And then when you get in, it was funny. MasterCard didn't pick me for the to be one of our sponsors, and I was hurt. And then I found out later they're like, we're already working with you. Why would we do that again? Go meet someone else. And that was the best advice, because I got paired with great folks, and they, learned what I needed to learn to go back and upsell the MasterCard. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll elaborate for you, because I talked to the MasterCard team and they even said, like, we want to know how Fanta does with everyone else out there. Like, we had a great experience and we want to make sure that, she can do that 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And so I also think the financial institutions very much use that as a way to see, how startups get exposure throughout the industry and how it works with some of their peers as well.
And it's a very close-knit network, right? So use your network, and we all talk to each other, like large financial institutions. So if you have a network somewhere, just talk to them to see, can I get an introduction to the company, and just let you know, like, what are they looking to solve for, and then could that be valuable for my business model? But with that mindset, like, am I solving a business problem as opposed to a technology problem? That should be the main goal.
Yeah, Lydia.
For the founder and CEO. So I guess, my question is, 3 months is a really short time to change a product and sort of go to a different direction. So from your experiences, I wonder if from the conversations that you're having with, enterprises, even if you come up with just, a product map of what a relationship would be like, versus actually restructuring the whole product, is that going to be like an outcome out of the program, or is there expectation that you'll come up with a different product, assuming that is the case, at the end of the program?
There have been occasions where right after a meeting with one of our mentors, we went back, we were coding whole night and we put up something next day just to impress them and understand if this is in line with what they're thinking. That is how we should treat this program as well, because it can shape your strategy. By end of those 3 months, you will have a lot of these key selling points in your product, which will allow you to close more deals. For example, when I got into this program, I never knew what MRM is. Apparently, it stands for Model Risk Management. So I never knew about that. And now, after the program, I say those words at least 10 times in a meeting, right? So, and that is how it shaped the whole program shaped. We realized that MRM team is super powerful, especially in the agent scenario, because they are the ones who are going to approve for any other team to use. So it has to be, you come with that mindset that don't have any sentimental attachment to your product. Come with that mindset and you will see where you'll land end of 3 months.
And small, basically, in response to the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And again, think about it. Think about us. We never had Lovable or Replit last year, but now you have it. So you can even bring up these prototypes even faster and show to the client, or show to the mentor companies and ask them if you are in the right direction. It'll help you move even faster, actually.
We've made big changes. Like I got some very candid feedback around our value proposition, how I explained our technology, the pricing model, and we pivoted. It's like, okay, we've heard this from multiple people. We need to make a change, guys. And we went home and rebranded, and then we started talking with this new voice, and it really helped. And we found a new business line that we're leaning into because we've noticed the FIs are selling faster. And so don't be afraid to, like, if your customer is telling you something and you need to really pivot, you should not be afraid to do it.
And I think, just building on that part, 2 years back, we mentored a company. They were having a discussion with the businesses, and, we serve in the affinity business model. It was not part of the roadmap, but they made a pivot, not immediately, but over time, right? Because that kind of gave them an opportunity for selling their product into a different segment, which they were not initially targeting or not thinking about. So, yeah.
And I think that's the whole point of the program, honestly, is to get as wide a sort of a range of inputs as possible. Obviously, you can't control who mentors you, who chooses you, but to get as many voices as possible opining. There are instances where, we felt very strongly that a particular product was not going to work for us, given, we have very, very specific needs in pensions and insurances is very, very highly regulated, even by financial services standards, right? So we're kind of, but it was very clear that there were opportunities for that company elsewhere, and we had certain people who were able to speak to that and able to point them in the right direction. So I think the range of inputs you're going to get is very important.
Yeah, and I would also trust your mentors and the companies that choose you. There was a company last year and they came to me and they're like, why did this asset manager choose us? Like, we're more of a retail focused tech. And they pretty much learned after getting to the program and spending time that the asset manager was thinking, well, we think we could really use this technology with our advisors. And so it really helped them kind of think about, okay, we're using this more retail oriented. We could be a bit broader with how we're applying this and use this for other use cases. So I think also kind of trust them and how they see your product, because it might change your lens for that as well. Yeah.
Matt CD, CTO. Thanks again for the panel so far. Very insightful. Heard a lot about kind of the kind of sponsor company relationship in terms of helping them guide through the program, and kind of building off the kind of point that Sharon just made about getting a lot of opinions across the board. I'm curious how the program helps facilitate more of the kind of across the ecosystem, getting those opinions from the other mentors in the program that might be talking to other companies, and even kind of in between, the people in the program, say, hey, what are you hearing from your mentor? Tell me about your kind of product changes. So I'm curious to kind of hear how that gets facilitated through that time to get more thoughtful
I'll give you the official answer, and I'm sure they all.
I'll give you the unofficial.
Yeah, exactly. So we try to like bake in a lot of sharing. Part of the design is that you, as a financial institution, you take on one or two companies and you go really deep with that team. And then we host kind of a session actually before the program starts, in the middle, and at the end, where we bring those chaperones together and say, what are you thinking about in terms of your company that you're mentoring? And we do it by groups with just that dedicated company, and also groups across all the companies. So you have an opportunity to share with the other chaperones on how things are going, maybe where they're having success, where they're not. And it's a great opportunity for the chaperones to say, hey, we brought them into our risk team and it really didn't go well. And the next client might say, or the financial institution might say, well, they nailed ours. And that was probably because all the feedback that you gave them. And so there's also like a lot of sharing that happens between those chaperones. And I think you'll see that evolution and the growth that happens across that. So there are like specific baked in opportunities where we actually have formal sharing sessions, and we'll anonymize what's been shared and share that back to you at the end of the program. So you'll get kind of a battle card of how many hours were spent, what was the general feedback, like strength of your team, strength of your tech, differentiation in the market compared to what those chaperones are saying as well.
And if I could jump in one, so there are two aspects. One is the startups gets paired up with, say, 4 or 5 mentor companies, right? So we meet specifically, as it's a very well-structured program. So you get to meet with the other chaperones to see how the startup is doing. And then there's a broader chaperone meeting that happens where everybody shares their point of view. So even if I'm not mentoring a company, I'll get to hear the point of view from other chaperones that I've mentored, which is kind of invaluable because we find notes, and so even if I have not worked with a startup, we will take it back to say, can I work with a company after this mentorship period ends, right? Once the program ends after demo day. So it's structured that way that enforces conversations amongst the chaperones and the other financial institutions. And we have had a couple of, Ben Coleman's company we didn't mentor it, but, we got to know them through that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes that's the most interesting part, because your company, like we know Siva's company, we know the other company that we mentored, and then somebody will pop up a name that we thought about, but it just, it wasn't really kind of a fit. And then they say, oh, during our session with them, we came up with X as a use case, and you think, aha, we could use that. So then you can go back to your tech teams and ask them, would you be interested to talk to this company, whatever. If the rest of the feedback was suggesting it was sufficiently developed or sufficient, other people were going to think about it. But not everybody has the same experience or use cases or reactions, and you can definitely come away afterwards with revisiting.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this is also time and place, right? It's so amazing how there might be a company passed on or didn't vote a couple of years ago because it might be crypto and they were not into that, but now like crypto's back and so they are interested in it. So it's pretty amazing how like year over year, like you might be a great product, but it's not the right time to apply. And so I do recommend, and Stefan is here, actually applied to the program, did our UK program, and is now back for the US program. So just pretty amazing as well around trying to get that timing to work out with the organizations as well. Yeah, question.
Son, part of the Billion team. Where do you see the biggest white space around things like tokenization that's going on, where you meet customers beyond the traditional institutional wallets?
So, like, if I understand that question correctly, like what your question is how are you maybe being a new distribution partner for some of the financial institutions through like tokenization as a vehicle? Yeah, fun question. Maybe I'll take like a different approach to this. We interviewed the financial institutions at the fall of every year to really understand what their priorities are. And still very much the big focus is around AI. But blockchain is coming back a little bit more and more. It was a big topic for us about 5 years ago. It was very quiet, probably the last administration here in the US, but now is very much back. And I think less than tokenization, there's still a big theme around hyper personalization and customer engagement. I think the appetite was much more efficiency optimization, more back office focused on technologies. And I think we're starting to see a bit of a page turn around more market facing, new revenue, new growth type companies as well. So whether it's tokenization or AI or anything else, I think there's a bit more of an appetite this year around customer facing solutions. But kind of curious how, Fanta, I mean, you're very much a retail focused platform. How you think about that with distribution, and curious from the chaperones as well.
Yeah, so we're definitely, honestly, out of this program kind of began to embrace the B2B2C side of Wealthy, right? And so we do sell through channel partners. That was our initial business model, and we were able to ground truth that through this program. And so we said, we don't want to necessarily sell bank to bank to bank. We want to sell through card networks that already have relationships with banks who can offer us and resell us. And after the program, we were able to close that with MasterCard. And so that's been working really well because it lets us focus on the tech and what we do well, and we can leverage BD teams to do the others. I know there's some companies that have done that with Accenture. So that's another potential avenue that we're looking at too. So yeah, I think be creative because they can move you a lot faster than you can on your own.
If I can, one more thought on that. So the lab's been around for 15 years. It used to be we named it the FinTech Lab, but it's really evolved past that. So when we started, it was much more like pure play FinTechs. Over time, it's probably about 50% horizontal play, so like security, data, infrastructure, et cetera, and probably about 30% pure play FinTechs and 20% pure play InsurTechs. So it's really kind of expanded since the initial creation of the lab, and so it's a pretty good blend of organizations that are part of the program.
I mean, last year, when we said tokens, it was just LLM tokens. Basically, no one cared about crypto tokens. But yes, I think there is demand, which we also see from our investor network as well. But yeah, I think the cohort will decide how they want to invest.
Of course. Another question? Yeah, Matt.
Matt Watt, Scale AI. You guys have talked a lot about obviously the wonderful opportunities to have some of those events for sharing some of the learnings in the mentorships. What kind of structure do you guys provide for being able to actually collaborate with yourselves as startups?
There's been some pretty fun, like impressive collaborations that I've seen in the past. Like last year, there was a company called Iron Vest that like scans your face to prove the authenticity before you make transactions financially. And they actually collaborated with a company called Reality Defender. That's a deep fake detection platform that came out of our lab a year before that. And it was like amazing to me that they thought of actually, combining their products to work together. So we've definitely seen it in the past, and it's been pretty interesting. I think you challenge each other to think more individually about that. But maybe I'm curious for both of you if you've seen that as well.
We did exchange notes. I think as a batch, we collaborated on some unofficial WhatsApp channels and other things. But you'd be super busy these 3 months between running your startup, meeting these mentors. I don't think you'll find time. I think the DC trip was quite good. We spent a lot of time. But yeah, but if there is another startup who's doing similar technology, you can exchange a lot of notes, which we did with Paul Key. Prisma was there in our batch who are doing, I think, AI regulatory aspects, responsible AI aspects. So we were able to share some notes.
And they have happy hour events where you can do that and you can be proactive and do it. You say that though, but you shared a lot with me. You probably don't remember. So, you got to use your opportunities. Like I got to sit next to this guy for a happy hour and I picked all the brain.
I mean,
so I definitely would think that yes. It's what you make of it.
Yeah. Another question? You had one before in the back. Are you rescinding that or okay?
Jeremy, work at Mayflower. Just kind of curious, like as you think about, if you did it over again, is there things that maybe you would have narrowed scope? Are there things you wish you could have, taken advantage of if you do it from scratch all over again? What are kind of the things you stick out to you?
So for me, it was perfect because what else could you ask? We just kept asking questions. We had 7 partners who chose us. We kept asking questions and we collected enough information. We built products, went to market, scaled, closed Series A. So from the outside, it looks perfect. But yes, I think I would have probably chosen less partners. Probably it was too tough to handle. 4 to 5 perfect number. And yeah, I think it's just a bit more clarity on who we wanted to meet within these firms. We always went out to CIOs, and because as a technology, we were selling to the CIOs. But eventually, we realized that the business function leaders were taking decisions even faster than the CIOs. So we could have probably had that clarity if I want to redo this all over again.
And I would say if you can, funding allows, I don't know what stage everyone is in, but bring as many team members as you can to the in-person events. They like to see your They like to see your team, who's going to be working with them. You don't want calls too. Like, you don't want 50 people on a call just staring at people, but being very strategic about bringing other people in, so it's not just the CEO talking for 30 minutes. Because if they are going to pursue a partnership or pilot with you, they want to see your bench. And so that's something that I would have done more, even bringing folks in from overseas. If you can fund it, that would be, I think, really valuable.
Maybe, I mean, obviously not a startup, but I'll give one that I hear often, which I think is getting a good jump start on the program as well. Like those 12 weeks go fast, and there's a bit of a momentum that you want to build. And I think getting through those first couple of weeks, while like make sure you do the right intros, present your product, get through the basics of explaining what your product is and who you are and the team, and you can really get down deep into the weeds of your roadmap, their tech, et cetera. Like the quicker you can kind of get through those conversations and really get traction, I think also helps you be successful. So. Awesome. Well, I know we're right at time, so maybe one more question before we wrap up. All right, perfect. We're all done then. Great. Just again, quickly, just want to reiterate. So our applications close on the 21st. If you get those in earlier, that's a great benefit for us. And we'll have another panel on the 14th that's virtual. So if you have any last minute questions, you're more than welcome to ask them there. One more time, I just want to thank our panel for being here tonight. Thank you all for coming tonight and being part of this. And then also I want to thank our team. So Christy, Caroline, Nicole, and the rest of the. And we'll hopefully see you guys on Shark Tank Day.
Good luck.
All the best.